tonight, with the cost of living, an increase in Social Security benefits this year isn't doing much, as some recipients say the higher cost of everyday items is outpacing those extra dollars. Kaylin Hagwood takes a closer look at the issue.
When this year, that's how they calculate the next year, which means the COLA sent for 2022 was 5.9%. Of course, the problem is the real-time inflation that we're all living in surpassed it and was 8.5%.
Folks, the House of Representatives and Joe Biden are ready to sign a new bill to this law. This legislation will help many people, Americans, financially. Direct payments of $800 will finally begin going out and hitting your bank account starting this week. Today, the Senate passed a bill that will force a tentative rail labor agreement and thwart a national strike. A separate vote on adding 7 days of paid sick leave to the agreement failed. The approved bill passed 80-15 and now goes to Joe Biden, who had urged Congress to act quickly before the strike's deadline. Biden said he was reluctant to override the vote against the contract by some unions, but stressed that a railroad shutdown would devastate economies. Labor groups have said that enforcing an agreement with the bill denies them the right to strike. In a statement, Joe Biden said he would sign the bill into law as soon as Congress sends it to his desk. Biden said in an official statement, "I know that many people will share my reluctance to override the union ratification procedures, but the case is that the consequences of a shutdown were just too great for the working families across the country." So, the bill was approved by the House on Wednesday and enacts new contracts providing railroad workers with 24% pay increases over 5 years, from 2020 to 2024. Immediate payouts averaging $11,000 upon ratification and an extra paid day off. This week, the House of Representatives approved a separate measure that would have added 7 days of paid sick leave to the contract instead of just 1. The measure was defeated in the Senate vote, and paid sick leave had been made part of disagreement between both parties. So now the parties have until December 9th and the end of the year to even get this bill done and an agreement before workers promise another strike, with the industry still estimated to cost the U.S. economy $2 billion a day.
Recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, I do agree with my colleague, Mr. Green. We do live in a different world. But Ms. Eddy, I want to address you first before I get into some of the arguments you may have heard. Well, let's just call them robust discussions. That's a more polite way. We have common goals. We have different paths of getting there. But I want to say thank you for sharing your very personal story. I want you to know I hear you. I see you. I believe my colleagues see you and hear your story. And I recently had a chance to, in my hometown, visit with an organization called Jubilee Ministries that is working at trying to get at that workforce housing. And they have been running into, like all of us, my family's actually in construction, all of us have been running into, on the development side, the difficulty of maneuvering past local governmental regulations to allow for affordable housing to exist. It's density issues, it's various elements of sort of over-engineering in a way. In fact, the National Association of Home Builders said,
now, there is a new deposit date in just a few days. Millions of low-income households, everybody, including those on Social Security, SSI, and SSDI, can expect to receive a bonus stimulus check. These payments have been approved by the government to help Americans with the rising cost of living. And the checks will start going out in several batches. A larger number of individual states have taken it upon themselves to provide some household budget relief to the residents that are still struggling with the enduring high cost of goods, gas, due to inflation. Many states have already sent out payments to residents to combat economic pressures, and some states have already established inflation stimulus programs. They're just getting around to issuing relief checks to the residents now. The Hawaii Governor David Ige has also announced that taxpayers will start receiving their tax refunds next week. Currently, around 600,000 Hawaii taxpayers are scheduled to approximately receive $300 million in tax refunds. In the first round of refund distributions, 100,000 taxpayers will receive the refunds either through direct deposit or by mail, and the Department of Taxation says 2 additional distribution dates are scheduled, which should actually complete the bulk of direct deposit refunds. Taxpayers receiving the refund checks by mail and who filed by tax returns by July 31st should receive their checks by the end of the month. And also, it is important to remember that taxpayers who request an electronic direct deposit will receive the refund through the same bank account. Now, the legislation provides checks for $300 or $100, and it all depends on the resident's filing status and federally adjusted gross income. And the governor also said that it is my hope that $300 million in tax individual filers and up to $500 for joint filers. According to the Virginia tax website, you were eligible if you had a tax liability last year. And taxpayers in Virginia also soon hope to be getting a $250 rebate for individual filers. The governor also said that helps them bring relief to the hardworking people to the state who are hard by the crisis. And about 3.2 million of you guys are expected to be issued stimulus checks by the end of the year. If you're eligible for the rebate, be sure to file your taxes by July 1st to make sure you have that done. And also, millions of qualifying Californians will receive up to $1,000 as part of the middle class tax refund program this week. Approximately 23 million tax-paying Californians are expected to be eligible for the payments, with smaller payments going to higher earners. To be eligible, you must have filed for at least a 2020 return by last October and make less than $150,000 a year. And also, the payments, which are technically tax refunds, are meant to help address rising costs. Newsom and state lawmakers have reached a deal for refunds back in June, when gas prices were already shattering records at or above $7 a gallon. You'll receive a payment automatically, everybody, without an application process, and according to the California Franchise Tax Board website, eligible people will receive their payment via direct deposit. So be on the lookout for these stimulus checks that you guys should expect to receive very, very soon.
Single solitary Biden man that is younger than any Biden woman. And my wife, by the way, at a community college, my wife is teaching today. My wife is a full-time college professor at a community college. And look, I'm here today because I want to share the progress we're making to bring down the cost, healthcare costs for everybody. And thanks to Democrats in Congress like Lou and also Katie. And Katie's, Katie's just been a star. You can tell she's not passionate about much, and you can tell she's a retiring soul. But all kidding aside, a policy whiz who knows how to talk to folks, a fighter who's taken on the powerful special interest. And we've seen it all. No drug company executive wants to testify in Congress before Katie. Nobody wants to do that to answer her questions, because they're to the point and they're revealing. Katie's is a big reason why I've been able to make such progress dealing with health care. And that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about today. I know it's been a tough 4 or 5 years for the country. We've made a lot of progress, but folks, a lot of folks are still struggling. Folks who came from the families I came from, where we sit around the kitchen table at the end of the month and wonder how in God's name we're going to pay